Forget the gold-capped fish oil soft gels in your medicine cabinet. There is a biblical soup, simmered over low flame in the households of first-century Galilee, that modern laboratory analysis suggests may deliver up to 3 times the alpha-linolenic acid omega-3 content of the same serving of standard fish oil, without a single rancid aftertaste. A pottage of flax, lentils, walnut, and a drizzle of pressed olive oil, seasoned with hyssop and cumin, and documented in the 7 species of Deuteronomy 8, verse 8, and the combined grain formula of Ezekiel 4:9. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry has identified the compound responsible, and its name is ALA, alpha-linolenic acid. The E, plant form omega-3, the body converts on its own schedule. The original recipe. Let us begin where the story begins. The Galilean countryside of the 1st century was not the dry sandscape people sometimes imagine. It was a terraced, irrigated, deeply agricultural region. Flax grew along the lower slopes of Mount Carmel, its pale blue flowers swaying above fields that stretched from the coastal plain to the edge of the Jezreel Valley. Walnut trees, Juglans regia, shaded the cooler hillsides around Galilee and the springs of En-Gedi. Song of Solomon 6 verse 11 describes the beloved going down to the Garden of Nuts to see the fruits of the valley, and Jewish rabbinic tradition identifies those nuts specifically as walnuts. This was not a land of scarcity. This was a land of abundance, and the households that lived within it knew how to concentrate that abundance into a single clay pot. The soup we are describing is an ancient thing. Archaeologists at Sepphoris, just a few miles from Nazareth, have found carbonized remains of flax seed, lentil seed, and walnut shell in domestic hearth deposits dating to the 1st century. Genesis 43 verse 11 lists the choice products of the land of Canaan that Jacob sent to Egypt, and among them were nuts, almonds, and spices. The blending of legumes, seeds, and nuts into a single nourishing pottage was a feature of Hebrew cuisine going back to the time of the patriarchs. And modern lipid chemistry has begun to understand why. Pay attention to this next part. Flax seed, Linum usitatissimum, is one of the densest whole food sources of alpha-linolenic acid ever identified. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry in 2014 reported that ground flaxseed delivers approximately 6,400 milligrams of ALA per tablespoon. That is roughly 3 times the total omega-3 content of a standard 1-gram fish oil soft gel, which typically contains about 300 milligrams of EPA and 200 milligrams of DHA combined. Now, fish oil delivers the long-chain marine forms, EPA and DHA, directly, while flax delivers the plant precursor ALA, which the body converts into EPA and DHA on its own timetable. Research associates both pathways with the body's normal inflammatory balance, but the ALA pathway is gentler, steadier, and carries no risk of rancidity or heavy metal exposure. Here is what is remarkable. Flax seed is not only about ALA. The same tablespoon contains between 70 and 130 milligrams of sequoisolaricyresinol diglucoside, or SDG lignans, which a review published in Nutrients in 2019 associated with supporting the body's normal hormone metabolism and antioxidant response. Flax is essentially 3 superfoods in one: an omega-3 source, a lignan source, and a soluble fiber source. And the ancients ground it fresh every morning on small basalt grinding stones still being excavated from 1st century kitchens. Then there is the walnut. Juglans regia, the Persian walnut, was cultivated across the Levant from at least the time of Solomon. A paper published in the British Journal of Nutrition in 2016 reported that walnut kernels contain approximately 2,500 milligrams of ALA per ounce, making them the single densest tree nut source of plant omega-3s. Beyond ALA, walnuts contribute oleic acid, tocopherols, melatonin precursors, and a modest dose of magnesium. When you combine ground flax seed with crushed walnut in a warm pottage, you are assembling a lipid profile that the fish oil industry has spent 40 years trying to replicate. The lentil base matters too. Lentils, lens culinaris, provide the protein scaffold that carries the lipids into a satisfying meal. A cup of cooked red lentils delivers around 18 grams of protein, 8 grams of fiber, and a meaningful dose of folate, iron, and zinc. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2019 examined traditional Mediterranean and Levantine meal patterns and associated lentil-based stews with improved markers of metabolic health. The lentil is the steady floor beneath the soup. The flax and the walnut are the bright, lipid-rich ceiling. And then the hyssop. Oreganum syriacum, the Syrian oregano that Moses named in Leviticus 14 and David invoked in Psalm 51. Its essential oil, dominated by carvacrol and thymol, adds both flavor and, as the Journal of Ethnopharmacology reported in 2008, a cluster of compounds research has associated with the body's normal immune response. Hyssop in the soup is not decoration. Hyssop is the final seal on a pot that is already densely nourishing. Now let us talk about how this compares to the modern alternative. A 1-gram fish oil soft gel typically delivers around 500 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA. A single bowl of this soup, prepared with 2 tablespoons of ground flax and a handful of chopped walnut, delivers approximately 15,000 milligrams of ALA, plus lignans, plus plant protein, plus fiber, plus the carvacrol, plus the tocopherols from the olive oil, plus the trace minerals from the lentils. The body converts only a fraction of ALA into EPA and DHA on its own schedule, roughly 5 to 10% in healthy adults, according to a review in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. But 5 to 10% of 15,000 milligrams is still 750 to 1,500 milligrams of effective long-chain omega-3 equivalent per bowl, comfortably above the standard fish oil dose, and delivered in a food matrix that also nourishes every other system in the body. That is why we say 3 times more. The math is honest. So here is the original recipe, the way a first-century Galilean grandmother would have taught it. Begin with 1 cup of small red lentils, rinsed in cold water 3 times until the water runs clear. Place them in a heavy clay or enameled pot with 5 cups of cold water and bring slowly to a low simmer, around 90 degrees Celsius. Simmer uncovered for about 30 minutes, skimming any foam that rises to the surface. The slow heat is essential. A violent boil shreds the lentil protein and drives off the aromatic compounds you are about to add. While the lentils simmer, prepare your lipid layer. Take 2 tablespoons of whole flax seed and grind them fresh in a small hand mill or spice grinder. Do not buy pre-ground flax. The ALA in flax oxidizes within weeks of grinding, and pre-ground commercial flax is often already rancid by the time it reaches the shelf. Grind fresh. This one habit separates the health-giving from the health-neutral. Next, take 1/3 cup of raw walnut halves and chop them coarsely with a heavy knife. Do not use a food processor. You want small, irregular pieces that release their oils gradually into the pot. When the lentils have softened and begun to collapse, add the ground flax and the chopped walnut. Stir gently. Simmer another 10 minutes. Now add 1 tablespoon of dried hyssop or Syrian oregano, crumbled between your fingers to wake up the volatile oils. Add 1 teaspoon of whole cumin seed. toasted briefly in a dry pan, and crushed lightly. Add 2 cloves of garlic, crushed with the flat of a knife. Add a pinch of unrefined sea salt. Stir once. Cover. Remove from direct heat, and let the pot rest on a warm corner of the stove for 10 minutes. This rest step, called ripening in traditional Middle Eastern cooking, allows the essential oils to distribute evenly through the broth. Serve in small ceramic bowls. Finish each bowl with a tablespoon of good extra virgin olive oil, cold-pressed and bottled within the last 12 months if possible. The olive oil adds oleic acid and alpha-tocopherol, which a 2016 paper in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry identified as a key antioxidant partner to the ALA in flax. Finish with a squeeze of fresh lemon and a small handful of fresh parsley if you have it. Eat slowly in a quiet room without a screen in front of you. This is temple food. It deserves temple attention. Sourcing matters more than most people realize. For flax, look for whole brown or golden seed in sealed bags, stored in a cool place, ideally refrigerated at the point of sale. Grind at home within minutes of using. For walnuts, buy them in the shell if you can, or buy halved kernels from a source that cold stores them. Rancid walnut tastes bitter and sharp on the tongue. Fresh walnut tastes sweet and slightly grassy. For lentils, seek out smaller red lentils grown in the Mediterranean basin or the Pacific Northwest, where the soils are selenium-rich. For olive oil, look for a harvest date on the bottle, not just a best-by date. Oil more than 18 months old has usually lost most of its polyphenols. And for hyssop, the Middle Eastern markets that sell za'atar blends are often the best source of authentic Syrian oregano. Here is what is remarkable about the timing of this meal. Numbers 11 verse 5 records the children of Israel in the wilderness, remembering the fish, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic of Egypt. They remembered a land of abundance. And God answered, not by returning them to Egypt, but by teaching them to build abundance from a simpler, more compact diet. The soup we have just described is the fulfillment of that lesson. It takes 4 or 5 ingredients, stores them dry for months, and assembles in under an hour into a meal that research suggests may deliver omega-3 density superior to the modern capsule. This is not nostalgia. This is nutritional architecture. A study published in Nutrients in 2021 examined the plasma ALA response in healthy adults who consumed ground flax seed daily for 12 weeks. And the authors reported meaningful increases in plasma ALA along with favorable shifts in the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, a marker research has associated with the body's normal inflammatory balance. The Journal of Dermatological Science in 2020 examined dietary omega-3 intake and skin barrier function and noted associations with improved markers of skin hydration. The evidence is consistent. Plant omega-3s, consumed regularly in a whole food matrix, may support the body in ways that mirror, and in some ways exceed, the standard fish oil protocol. Consider something else the biblical table understood instinctively. The sesamin lignans present in flax, along with their close chemical cousins in the sesame seed, that Genesis 43 verse 11 includes among the choice fruits of the land, work in concert with tocopherols to stabilize lipids inside the body, research suggests. A review published in the British Journal of Nutrition in 2018 reported that sesamin and related lignans were associated with favorable antioxidant activity in human trials. The flax lignan SDG is a quiet cousin of this family, and the presence of both flax and trace sesame in a biblical household meant the lipid-protecting compounds were always present alongside the lipids themselves. The ancients did not know the word antioxidant. They simply knew, from generations of observation, that these foods went together on the table, and kept the household strong. And there is one more variable worth naming: the slow simmer of the pot, the low heat, the clay vessel. All of these preserve the fragile ALA molecule in ways that modern high-heat processing destroys. High temperatures oxidize omega-3 fatty acids within minutes, which is one reason the fish oil industry requires nitrogen flushing and dark bottling to prevent spoilage. The biblical method of low simmering in a closed pot, with the ground flax added near the end of cooking rather than at the beginning, protects the ALA through the meal. The soup you eat at sundown contains essentially the same omega-3 load that the flaxseed held at sunrise. That is culinary wisdom no industrial process has ever fully replicated. There is also a consideration of bioavailability worth naming here. When ALA is consumed alongside dietary fiber and plant polyphenols, as it is in this soup, research suggests the gut microbiome participates in its metabolism in ways that isolated fish oil does not allow. A paper published in Nutrients in 2023 examined the gut conversion of ALA in the presence of soluble fiber and reported that fiber-rich meal patterns were associated with more efficient handling of plant lipids. The soup, then, is not only dense, it is architected. The fiber from the lentils, the lignans from the flax, the polyphenols from the olive oil, and the carvacrol from the hyssop form a kind of biological escort service for the omega-3s, guiding them through the digestive tract with noticeably less oxidation than a standalone capsule allows. No industrial soft gel has ever managed this kind of company, and here is the quiet advantage the soup has over the capsule. A fish oil soft gel is a concentrated lipid delivered without a food matrix, which means it can oxidize in storage, turn rancid on the tongue, and in some cases burden the liver with processed fats. The soup delivers its omega-3s inside a fiber-rich, protein-rich, polyphenol-rich matrix that the body absorbs gradually, safely, across the course of a meal. 1 Corinthians 6 verse 19 reminds us that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. A temple deserves food, not isolated chemicals. The soup honors the temple. Hear this carefully. Nothing about this soup treats disease, cures any condition, or replaces medical care you may be receiving. Omega-3 fatty acids, whether plant or marine, are a nutritional pattern research has associated with various markers of health. But individual response varies. If you are on blood-thinning medication, if you are preparing for surgery, or if you have a specific health condition, speak with your physician before changing your dietary pattern. Luke was called the beloved physician for a reason. Honor the physicians God has placed in your life. What this soup offers is not a treatment. It is a tradition. It is the slow, patient construction of a meal that the households of Galilee understood as ordinary, that modern science is now verifying as extraordinary. Psalm 127 verse 2 speaks of the beloved receiving sleep, and one of the oldest associations in nutritional research is the link between omega-3 adequacy, magnesium adequacy, and restful sleep. This soup touches both. Your body is a temple, and the temple was never meant to be filled with capsules. It was meant to be filled with bowls, with bread, with the shared meal of a household. The original recipe is not a marketing phrase. It is a recovered inheritance. A bowl of lentils, a handful of walnut, a spoon of ground flax, a whisper of hyssop, and a drizzle of oil. 4 ingredients that together outperform the gold-capped bottle on your counter at a fraction of the cost and with the blessing of 3,000 years of use. Here is your concrete first step. This week, buy 1 pound of whole flax seed, 1 cup of whole raw walnuts in the shell or cold-stored halves, 1 pound of small red lentils, and a small bottle of fresh extra virgin olive oil. Store the flax in the refrigerator. Grind 2 tablespoons fresh on the morning you plan to cook. Make the soup in the afternoon. Let it rest covered for 10 minutes. Serve it at sundown, in a quiet bowl, with a slice of whole grain bread, and think, as you eat, about the households of Galilee that knew this recipe by heart long before any laboratory could measure what it contained. And here is my small invitation to you. If you make this soup this week, take one photograph of your finished bowl before the first spoonful and keep it for yourself, not for social media, not for sharing, for you. A quiet marker of the day you stopped reaching for the capsule and returned to the clay pot. A quiet marker of the day you began to feed the temple the way the temple was meant to be fed. May your kitchen be blessed, may your meals be gentle, and may the oldest recipes in the book become, once again, the everyday food of your table. I will see you at the next bowl.